They say every child deserves a parent, but not every parent deserves a child. In this case, that phrase feels painfully literal. What follows isn't just the story of a crime, it's the slow, visible construction of a monster, one that the system failed to stop again and again until 6 children paid the ultimate price. Long before the headlines, long before the fire, there was Mick Philpott. Born in 1956 in Derby, England, Philpott would later become infamous for fathering an extraordinary number of children with multiple women. To outsiders, it might have looked chaotic or unconventional, but behind closed doors, something far darker was unfolding. Philpott didn't see family as love or responsibility. He saw leverage, control, and profit. Those closest to him would eventually describe him as volatile, violent, and terrifyingly charming when it suited him. Psychologists later labeled him a psychopath. But decades before any diagnosis, the warning signs were already screaming. Philpott's pattern began early. At just 19 years old, he pursued a 15-year-old schoolgirl named Kim Hill. At first, he played the role of the attentive older boyfriend, but that illusion shattered quickly. What followed was a campaign of abuse so extreme it defies belief. He beat Kim in public. He humiliated her. Once, in a pub, he struck her across the mouth with a pool cue, leaving her bleeding while no one intervened. Behind closed doors, the violence escalated. He broke her arm. He smashed her kneecap with a hammer, reportedly because she paid too much attention to a baby she was babysitting. He accused her of infidelity without reason. He punished imagined slights with real pain. In one chilling incident, Philpott shot Kim in the groin with a crossbow because he believed her dress was too short. Still in school and trapped in fear, Kim lied about her injuries to protect him. Like when the man was released from prison in the mid-1980s, the justice system believed he had been rehabilitated. Officials viewed his release as a sign of progress. To them, he had paid his debt and learned his lesson. To the man himself, freedom meant something very different. It was not a second chance. It was a reset. He did not reflect on the harm he had caused or the lives he had damaged. There was no remorse. Instead, he observed, adjusted, and refined his approach. What he learned was simple. Force alone did not last. Fear could control someone briefly, but it could not guarantee obedience over time. For long-term control, he needed something stronger. He needed dependency. Dependency, he realized, did not begin with violence. It began with vulnerability. It required finding people who were already struggling, already isolated, and already looking for safety. From that point forward, his relationships followed a consistent pattern. In the late 1980s, he married a woman and started a family. They had children together. From the outside, their life appeared ordinary. A home, a routine, and the appearance of stability. Behind closed doors, the reality was very different. Fear was constant. The woman lived carefully, aware that any resistance could provoke consequences. She knew what he was capable of and believed that speaking out could place her in serious danger. Rather than confronting him directly, she hoped for a quieter solution. She believed that if his attention shifted elsewhere, the pressure inside the home might ease. For a time, that hope sustained her. Eventually, it became reality. Several years later, the man became involved with a much younger partner. She came from a difficult background and lacked a strong support system. To her, he appeared confident, protective, and reassuring. He positioned himself as someone who could offer safety and structure. Slowly, he isolated her from outside influence. Over time, she became emotionally and practically dependent on him. They had children together. As the household grew, familiar patterns returned. When expectations were not met, intimidation replaced reassurance. He asserted authority through fear and encouraged others in the household to reinforce his dominance. Resistance was discouraged, not just by him, but by the environment he created. When the younger partner attempted to challenge him or regain independence, she was threatened with a weapon. The message was clear: leaving would not be simple. Despite the fear, eventually she found a way out. She escaped, leaving behind everything she knew. The separation was not clean or immediate. By 2012, Mick Philpott's carefully constructed world was starting to collapse. For years, he had controlled his household through fear, manipulation, and financial dependency. But control only works as long as everyone stays in place, and one person was no longer willing to do that. Lisa Willis had reached her limit. Years of abuse had worn her down. Physical assaults, emotional humiliation, and near total isolation. Philpott monitored her movements, controlled who she spoke to, and punished any sign of independence. He hit her with pieces of wood. He threw scalding coffee at her. He made it clear that leaving would come at a cost. But Lisa had begun planning her escape in silence. In February 2012, she told Marek she was taking her children swimming. Instead, she drove to her sister's house and never returned. It was the only way she could leave without triggering a violent confrontation. For Philpott, this wasn't just abandonment, it was humiliation. Worse still, it threatened his finances. Lisa took 5 children with her, 5 sources of benefit income. A custody battle followed, and with it, the risk that Philpott's grip on both money and image would weaken. The man who had always framed himself as a devoted father now faced the possibility of losing children, public sympathy, and control. To Philpott, that outcome was unacceptable. What he devised next wasn't an emotional outburst, it was a calculated scheme. Philpott, along with his wife Marek and a family associate named Paul Mosley, began planning a fire. The idea was chillingly self-serving. They would set their own house ablaze while children were inside, then Philpott would heroically rescue them. Lisa, he believed, could be blamed for starting the fire. The plan served multiple goals. It would destroy Lisa's credibility, strengthen Philpott's custody case, and potentially secure a larger council house due to tragic circumstances. Above all, it would restore his status as the victim hero. A custody hearing was scheduled for the following day. The timing was no coincidence. In the early hours of May 11, 2012, just after 4 a.m., the plan was put into motion. Petrol was poured through the letterbox. Flames erupted inside the home. But fires don't follow scripts. The blaze spread far faster. As the investigation deepened, Mick Philpott's version of events began to unravel. What initially looked like a tragic accident was now unmistakably an act of arson. And the more authorities listened, watched, and analyzed, the clearer it became. This fire was never meant to be an act of destruction. It was meant to be a performance. But performances fall apart when the audience hears what happens backstage. Unaware they were being monitored, Philpott, his wife Marek, and Paul Mosley spoke freely in their hotel room and police vehicle. The recordings were devastating. Philpott could be heard admitting responsibility, saying repeatedly that it was his fault they had lost their children. He pressured others to stay consistent. He obsessed over minor discrepancies, fingerprints, statements, timelines, revealing not grief, but fear of exposure. Even more disturbing was the emotional detachment. Rather than mourning, Philpott spoke about the situation as a logistical failure. The fire had spread too fast. The rescue plan hadn't worked. The ladder at the back of the house, meant for his staged hero moment, was never used. Investigators also uncovered evidence of Philpott's manipulation of loyalty. He encouraged sexual encounters between Marek and Mosley, believing it would keep Mosley compliant and invested. Mosley later admitted to sexual activity with Marek just hours before the fire. The dynamics weren't about desire, they were about control. When arrests followed, the shock to the public was immense. Philpott and Merrick were taken into custody in late May 2012. Mosley was arrested months later after forensic tests confirmed petrol residue on his clothing. What initially began as murder charges would later be reduced to manslaughter. Prosecutors argued that while the trio hadn't intended to kill the children, they knowingly created a deadly situation, one any reasonable person would recognize as life-threatening. The trial laid bare what many had missed for years. Philpott wasn't a misunderstood father living an alternative lifestyle. He was an abuser who weaponized dependency, manipulated public perception, and exploited systems designed to protect families. Children were not individuals to him, they were assets. On April 2, 2013, the verdicts were delivered. Mick